Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Neptunes Sunday. It's your boy B Moss, reunited with my partner in crime.
It's your girl. Hi, everybody.
Oh, good.
Happy to be back on the pod.
Welcome. It's good to see you,
Same. It's been a little minute. You've been rolling solo.
man. It's been a crazy, crazy couple of months. So let's just catch up, yo.
Yeah.
So happy to see you in a new location. You got new vibes in your
Yes.
crib, window views.
Lots of good energy in
Lots
here.
of lots of sunlight beaming on you. It's
Got a balcony out there. If it wasn't so cold, I'd be recording outside.
so yes, I have been rolling. This actually, for reference, and you will not hear this in order of the recording, but this is the fourth episode that will be recorded in the month of October, which is absolutely wild. But hey, we're here. We
Hardest working
love
man
it.
in podcasting.
We love it. We love it. So give me some critiques with anything that we haven't talked about. You need to give me some call me out on some crazy shit from any of the previous episodes that we haven't.
I gotta go back to the bracket episode. And you know what I'm about. My feelings were so hurt.
Oh my goodness.
I Don't Love Her went out so early.
Oh my
Everybody was like,
goodness.
nah, we're not interested in this. And I was just like, you guys are breaking my heart. Um,
I
but
mean,
yeah,
the bracket episode was nuts, and
it was a fun time though.
it was fun to be in the room with those guys. I love those guys very much. They're a huge part of my life. So to share this with them is always dope. I will say that anyone listening that hasn't listened to the bracket episode, I'm not gonna ruin it and tell you who won, but I'm gonna give you a little bit of insight. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. This is a perfect opportunity for this. So, a couple things that came up. So the rankings, the whole like that the rankings were what really drove that conversation. And I purposely did it in a way where I had input from people who weren't from Virginia, who
Yeah.
weren't in our little 804 my best friend group because we all like the same stuff for the most part. So we could have other insight, like from people like you, Vogue,
I
right, who
thought
have
that
a
was really
different
smart.
perspective. But here's the one thing that really I think was interesting, but didn't ultimately matter. So my boy, I'm not gonna say his name. One of my boys who was not in the room, who I thought was gonna be in the room, but he ended up not being able to make it, sent me his list. He is from the 757.
Yeah.
He did not have Virginia on his list at all. When I asked him, when I realized it weeks later and I called him out, he's like, bro, I'm ashamed of myself. And I was like, bro, you should be. But I think that was just like, I think the conversation of the song that won, I think it deserved to win, but I think everyone knows the legacy of the other songs that may or may not have won. I'm just gonna
Absolutely.
say that.
Yeah,
That's
there were some really great points made about each individual song. I was
right.
like, oh yeah, I see that. And you made the great point, which you were speaking to earlier, of just like there is something to be said for everyone's individual perspective. Like I come to the Neptunes from such a particular place and like my own interest in music. Everybody, like you guys have more similar roots, but it's interesting to kind of like merge all of those things and see the differences.
For sure. For sure. So if you haven't listened to the bracket episode, go check it out if you're a Clipse fan. Again, every time I get the opportunity, I'm going to speak into existence that we're going to get a Clipse album. If we're lucky and blessed, it'll be by the end of 2022, but you never know.
We're praying hard for that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's
Also,
do it.
shout out to your mom. That was such a cute episode.
Shout out to my mom, man. Shout out to the GOAT, Miss Chey. That was really cool moment just to sit and chat with her. She's a hilarious like person in general, but like to me, I think there's things about her that are funny because I know her so well and she knows me more than anyone else does. And she, just for us to sit down and have conversations like that, it doesn't happen as often as either of us would like to.
Yeah.
Obviously, with me living in a different place, but it's that was a perfect example of times where I remind her as my mother that I'm a grown ass adult.
Yeah.
Like, that I can have a conversation with you as an adult and we can talk about things and it's not just like, I'm actually educating you about some stuff, but also
Yeah.
like really the point of that was also to really use that as a way to show the tribute to her, like to
Yeah.
tribute to her impact on me in general, but also her impact in me creatively, artistically, specifically musically, and how she really is the reason why this podcast exists ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys actually talk about something in the episode. I want to say it right now that I want to get into for the Justified episode. So that's the perfect
Uh-oh.
segue for us to get started.
Okay, so as Vogue just alluded to, we are here today to discuss the first solo album from one Justin Timberlake
Heater.
titled Justified. It's the 20th anniversary of this album this November. So we're gonna have a conversation about the album, some other things around the process of the album, and other things related to the album and Justin himself. And let's get into it.
Yeah. I'll start off by saying something I've said to Vaughn already. You know, when I think about, we talk about our origins in Neptune's fandom a lot, and I think that they kind of are different. But I realized that, of course, I've heard this album so many times. This is probably the most played album from like my college years. And as I was listening to it again recently, I was just like, this was my entryway into Neptune's fandom. Like, this was the thing that connected me to them. And I think that, like, the conversation around this album at the time was like, oh, Justin and Tim. Like, sure, that's not to take away Timbaland's contributions to this album, but like, when I run it back, like, it was pretty Neptunes heavy to me. It gave me that sound that I fell in love with. So it was really how I fell in love with Pharrell and Chad.
To me, this album, my mom says on the episode with her about my eclectic tastes in music, is just, this was one of the like, why do I have this album from this guy who was in sync, this boy band? But like,
Yeah.
oh no, like this is Pharrell and Timbo. Oh yeah, like there's definitely Michael Jackson, Earth, Wind and Fire inspired vibes. Like there's a Janet Jackson feature. Oh, like Bubba Sparks. Like there's okay, cool. Like this was one of those albums at that time that was kind of this like critical mass of all of these different genres and all these
Yeah.
things that people in our age group were liking and
Yeah.
being in the same project. So, this is a little bit of background on the album. Four singles, Like I Love You, Cry Me River, Rock Your Body, Senorita. I think the really cool thing about that I realized the other day too is that it was ahead of its time and really understanding the value in having a short, succinct album.
Yeah.
It's only got, what is that, 13, 12, 13 tracks? One of those.
13 songs, 1 hour, 3 minute runtime.
So that's perfect, man. And the other thing, like this album, I used to write like in the morning on my way to school in the 11th grade before I had my license because I failed my driver's test. That's a whole nother long story. But basically, I had to ride to school with my mom for the first half of 11th grade when this album came out in that fall. Two of my little homies, my little sister Erin and my little brother Rashid. So we would rotate between our parents driving us to school, and like we needed to have some music in the car that was not profane, but also
Right.
like not some old people stuff. So
Right.
this was the perfect album at that time. So I do remember that. That's another memory just randomly to throw out there too.
Absolutely.
But yeah, but like it's got the references, P and Chad talk about how it's got the inspiration from Earth, Wind and Fire and Mike Jackson on the production.
Yeah.
It was written and recorded in a 6-week period, which is wild to think
I
about.
thought that was really cool. I thought that when I was reading about that, and that the Earth, Wind, and Fire connection was what I was talking about, from your mom. But just kind of bringing back into like the musical landscape this idea of like I'm just going in, coming up with this album. It's not like super overthought, super overproduced. They just let it flow organically, and I feel like despite it being largely two different producer sets, it feels really cohesive and it feels like a project.
Right.
And I thought that was really dope. I definitely did say the wrong time. It was not college, it was high school.
So, so we're gonna go song by song just to give
Yeah.
our talk about some history, talk about some perspective, some feelings, some interpretations about each song. But before we get into that, I want to make sure because I'm gonna reference it. So, if you're a diehard JT fan or a diehard Neptunes fan or even a diehard Timbo fan, maybe you know this already, but Justin Timberlake's best friend, I think his name is Trace, followed Justin through this whole process of recording this album with a camcorder and recorded pretty much all of these sessions for this album. That recording exists on YouTube. So I knew that. And before this episode to prepare, I tried to watch it. And I got through it's basically broken into parts. I watched an hour long part one, part two, back to back, and then got to do something else the next day. I started watching part three and I was like, oh my gosh, there's at least 7 parts. And then I got through part 6 and realized that there was 14 parts. And so full transparency, guys, I did not watch all 14 parts. I think I made it through 6. But a couple of things I wanted to talk about, Vogue, that I took away from watching the part that I did watch that I thought was really cool. And I think for people that appreciate the music and appreciate this album specifically, like you will appreciate the documentary if you have the time to watch all 14 parts. So in the beginning of part one, they're on a private jet going like flying to Norfolk, and like just me from being from Virginia, just that image and hearing them say we're taking a PJ to Norfolk, it's just like, what? Like why? Like, and as soon as they get off the plane, they're walking past, and it's one of the guys that works at the airport that recognizes JT and says, yo, where's the rest of the group or something like that, which is hilarious. I mean, but the documentary is literally them just being in the studio, just as if you were just sitting in there in the studio listening to them play with notes and cook up the different songs. And like, you get to really see a really dope behind the scenes look into Pharrell and Chad's process into this project, which is like, as you just said, like this is one of the biggest projects that helped them be shot out to superstardom, super producer level. But there are a couple parts in there too, which I think are I'm not surprised, but like it's interesting that they still exist on the internet and people don't know. Like it's really some glimpses of Justin and Pharrell specifically both being kind of cocky, which I think Pharrell has mentioned before that he was that guy that was cocky back in the day. So Justin, like, they listened to a recording of Like I Love You, and then Justin has his phone on his ear and he says, you've reached me and I can't come to the phone because I'm whooping that ass and you might as well quit. And I'm like, who is he talking? Like, who do you think is hating on him? Like, I don't know. And so then there's other really unique part, sticking with Pharrell's cockiness. So then there's a part where Pharrell says to Justin, yo, when you do your press and they say, who did you work with on your album? Don't say Neptunes. Say I work with Williams and Hugo. And I was like, bro, like, because he was talking about how they're using live drums. He's like, oh yeah, you thought you was gonna get this clavichord. No, this is all live. This is live instrumentation. I was like, because there's literally a part of, and we'll get into this in a second, where you can see him like in the studio in the booth, like doing some of these percussion instruments. Like, but one thing I also want to talk about is a really unique rant that P goes on about the Arabic sound, which at that time in 2002, 2003 was like really bubbling because like Timbo had been using it for a while after like around Big Pimpin' and after that. But he specifically P specifically mentions the Truth Hurts record that I think Dre did, right? With
exactly what I was thinking about.
And he said, like P says in the document, documentary, or like, I mean, I don't know if we should even call it a documentary, but it's just like the footage. Like he says, no more Arabic shit. We back to this 80s. And I'm like, it's so funny because you're literally talking about this, like, and he does eventually say no disrespect to Timbo, like, you know, he's doing it a different way. Like he gives him credit for it. But like Timbo is literally on the same album with a song that has the what song is that? The
I was
What You
trying to,
Got has
yeah, do 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 do. That's
yeah.
it.
But I thought that was so funny because I'm just like, yo, like this guy was like the humble P that we know today.
Yeah.
It does make me feel good to see that, because like at that
Yeah.
moment they were killing shit. Like,
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting ready to say. Cause I'm like, we all know him as like the soft, gentle Pharrell. And I mean, talk that talk because you have it, you have the resume to do it. And so I kind of am I actually am gonna go back and watch this, guys. Hold me to it. But it is kind of nice to see him actually giving himself credit for that kind of work.
right.
Because they were like the hottest thing out.
They were doing work,
Yeah.
and I think that is, you know, when you watch it, you notice the chemistry that they're building. You notice how important it is, and it's not just with P and Chad, but like some of the other producers, like the way that they have conversations about stuff, like, oh, do you want to punch in here, or like, do you want to do this part over, like the way that it's really just about it's a creative process of, you know, being like, I think that's something that I think people who don't even know music or just listen to music casually but don't understand it, but like when someone is a producer, it's not like they just made a beat and handed to you.
Right. Right.
Like, especially if we're writing and co-writing songs together, like there's tons of dope moments where they're sitting there crafting stuff up where it's like, oh yeah, like you need to understand that this shit just doesn't just happen. Like you need to
Right.
see that this is really, and that's why he, like we just said, he has the ability and the right to talk that talk, is because like he's sitting there. This is his shit.
Right. Exactly. You know, I think that in the newer era of music that we're in, you kind of hear these stories of like, oh, I made this beat and I sent it to such and such, or oh, I made this beat and
Right.
so sent me a track and then I mastered it totally away from them, which is, that's not to shit on that process, that has its own value. But I do think that like something special comes out of like that in the studio collaboration.
Right.
Um, and I honestly would love to see more of it come back. I know we live in like a digital world. We're just, you know, coming out of a pandemic, all
Right.
that. It's nice that we're still able to do things and hear new things despite that. But there's magic that's made when like two parties come together and create together.
For sure. For sure. All right. Let's get into the album. First
Yeah.
song, Senorita.
Yeah.
Go for it. What you got?
Oh man, the first few tracks really remind me of actually my time on Palms. Yes, dance reference. Because I want to say that like we were so into this album, we were like pushing our coach. We were like, we got to dance to one of these songs. I'm pretty sure Senorita was one of them. Um, I love Senorita. It's just like so fun. He has like that call and response at the end. Um, I don't have anything to say, but I just like enjoy it so much. You guys can't see me, but I'm smiling really big.
Yeah, so on part one of the footage, like I was saying about like P saying it was live, like he literally, and I don't want to mess the name of it up, but it's like the sound of sounds like scratching. It's like it gives it that Spanish music sound.
Yeah.
It's called a gyro or something like that. But
Where
like, yes, but you literally see P in there scraping it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see Justin, like Justin says something to the camera, it's just like, yo, like we're really doing it. Like he's really in there doing this himself. Like, and I was
Yeah.
like, that's dope. Like that's really dope to see. And seeing him, you know, the live drums on Senorita are dope too.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of this is a future episode. We'll have to get into the Spanish music inspirations of the Pharrell
Yes.
Neptune songs. Like
Yes.
this is one, probably the most popular, but I think there's a bunch of other ones that are really dope as well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's this track kind of feels like I always think of like a concert space when I hear it. and it's always been that way. And I never really put it together how important like the live instrumentation was to this album
For
until
sure.
like we started like forming this conversation. Because I'm like, yeah, I've always kind of envisioned him on a stage
Right.
playing this song to an audience, and obviously it was recorded in the studio.
For sure. And you think about it too, like it's a strong fourth single. Like if you are at that point or at any point being able to put out a fourth single, that means you got hits on you got hit records, man. And that's a very strong fourth single, especially following up to Rock Your Body, which was huge.
Oof.
So
Yeah.
okay, next song, Like I Love You. Obviously, for me, we're always going to talk about this song from perspective of how it helped to launch the career and promo the debut of Pusha and Malice,
Yeah.
which is really dope. Seeing them in the video, seeing them perform at the VMAs. But I think the song is it's a great song. I think I think there's definitely a lot of strategic reasons why that makes sense as the first single too.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, kind of like harkening back to what you were saying about like the Spanish music influence, there is like a little bit of Spanish tone
Yeah. Yep.
influence on this tape, and so it makes sense, tape album, so it makes sense that this song was put out and it did so well, because like that's the sound that everybody was looking for at that time. And I think, I mean, I'm going to say the obvious thing that like I don't know that I'd be a Clipse fan without this song. I don't know that I would have naturally made it there on my own, um hopefully, but this was really my introduction, like, oh, I like these guys.
Yeah, for sure.
This was a major track for me when this was out.
So my references from the documentary on this song, one, like maybe again, like I have sometimes I come on here and I like share my big picture ideas, hoping that someone will listen to me. Like just speaking into existence. So maybe there's someone in Justin Timberlake's camp who thinks it's a good idea to harness this footage and like make it into a real documentary.
Yeah.
Because watching it, there's people who pop up, you have no idea who they are,
Yeah.
right? Like you recognize Pharrell and you recognize Chad and you recognize Timbo, but then there's other people who are in the room who probably are important. If they're important enough to be in the room, like they might have some context, right? Like
Yeah.
just to give, to fix the audio and to add some lower thirds. That's just the creative marketing guy in me saying that this is an opportunity. But I say that because when they're listening to Like I Love You in the studio, there's this dude that comes in dancing, and he has to be the choreographer, or like he is freestyling, but he does a lot of the same movements that you will recognize from the video.
Yeah.
And he's 100%, like you can tell he's just vibing. He's just
Yeah.
listening to the song and then doing his thing. But you see the pop in and the different movements that you come to associate with JT on that song. That it's like obviously this guy has got to be the choreographer.
Yeah. And that's dope to be like, I think as a dancer, that's not something you get a lot. Like you're not welcome into the music creation space. You just get the product
Right.
and do something with it. So I feel like that's a special experience for that to be connected at the time that it's created.
For sure.
That's really rare.
So another thing that came up after they were talking about or listening to Like I Love You, and this is something that we've talked about before in the pop episode. P says he's interested to see which stations will play the songs from the album, because the black stations have to play it, because the R&B that was out at the time is not really fucking with this.
Yeah.
And he was right.
Yeah.
He was definitely right.
Yeah. Can't disagree.
But that's just about the conversation that we've had before about JT and his viewpoint on what he should be categorized as. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I had a really hard time with this at the time. And I guess, I mean, it's been so long. I don't really remember my feelings so clearly on it, but it was hard to hear because this album did so much to legitimize, like I was an NSYNC fan. But it did so much to legitimize Justin Timberlake in our world as Black people. And then kind of hear the mumblings about him feeling it was just it was hard. I was like, this is very clearly an R&B album. This is very clearly an album
Yes,
that belongs in this space. Um, and so I think that was kind of like some of my first introduction to it as a music fan of like the politics of music.
for sure. For sure. I mean, he, you know, you should have just embraced it, man. I mean, you got to
Yeah.
understand where you're at, bro. Like,
Yeah.
you literally got Pharrell and Chad and Timbo to make most of your album. Like
Yeah.
you were just in the R&B space, bro.
Accept it.
Just accept it and roll with it.
Yeah.
Which is not to go on a tangent. Like, I don't want to go on a rant, but for a later date, we'll have to have a conversation about Robin Thicke and how he did embrace it. And there's so many. I don't want to get in. I don't want to get too much in this because me and Kia listened to Robin Thicke's Evolution of Robin Thicke album on the way to Richmond. Like, and while we're listening to the album, I was just like, man, well, it's just so crazy. Sign a Star Trek. You only really got one Star Trek song, like Neptune song on here.
Yeah.
Like, you think about there's 2 Lil Wayne features on there, and the height of the Clipse and Lil Wayne beef. Like, there's just so much going. Like, I don't want to. We'll have to talk about that later.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's an important conversation to have. It's interesting. It
that guy needs his own episode. It's coming.
does. And you know, on that episode, I think that we'll have a larger conversation about Blue Eyed Soul, I guess I'll say. Because it's interesting. Justin has his own interesting tale of how that has developed over the years. That goes into the Man in the Woods conversation. Like there again, there's a lot of interesting politics at play.
Okay, let's keep going. So the first song is "Oh No." What you got? Timbo. It's the first Timbo.
All right.
Go
so
ahead. What you got?
Here's where I get real, and I'm gonna caveat: this is absolutely no disrespect to Timbaland, but I think in re-listening to this recently, I was like, I definitely liked the Tim tracks less than I did. I didn't know. I wasn't paying attention to who the producer was. But the Tim tracks for me don't resonate as hard. And so this is like I like this song. I don't dislike it. I like the Arabian influence. Like, it's a good song. It just didn't stick in my mind in the way some of the other tracks on this album did.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think the Timbo tracks are solid.
Yeah.
It's just the Neptune songs were just really strong. And obviously Crimea River was a monster.
Wow.
A monster. We'll come back to that in a second. But yes, I do agree. Like, I think that's just kind of, it makes sense. Like the Timbo songs were good, as they were as good as they needed to be.
Yeah.
And considering the way that they came back on the next album, definitely crafted out and perfected their collaboration.
Yeah.
On future Sex Love Sounds. Absolutely. Okay. Next song is Take It From Here. Sing-songy ballad. I like it. It's it's okay.
I think this was like my shit when the album. I don't know. I think it was like the P writing. There's like a very specific style of writing that Pharrell does that I could hear on this song. Like little weird things that he says on songs sometimes. There's like a whole line about like, I want to be your mother. It was just kind of out there, but I really thought it was such a cute song. And it spoke to me. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, Take It From Here is definitely it's definitely a good song.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's probably the best. Well, no, Take It From Here is a good song. And I like Take It From Here because it is very much a Neptune song that does not sound like a Neptune song, just traditionally. Like, it's very you know, the instrumentation on it sounds like you actually have the live violin or strings in it. Like it's a really good song.
Yeah. Funny enough, and this is just coming to me as we're talking about it, the strings in this song for some reason are putting me in the mind of what is that song on the album? And it starts with whistling.
Oh yeah, yeah. On Fly Die.
Yeah.
Wonderful World.
Yep, yep, yep. It reminds me there's something about that
Yeah,
song
it's just
very much
the
so.
peacefulness of it. It's just
Yeah,
very like, yes.
very much.
Yeah.
So this was my jam. I loved it. But Cry Me a River.
Let's get into it. Let's get
Whoa.
into it. What a difference the next song makes. Oh my gosh.
You go from peace to like complete destruction because like I don't think unless you were like a big music fan at the time, younger people do not understand what the Justin and Britney relationship and breakup was
Bro.
like.
It yo, all due respect, it is literally Chris Brown and Rihanna without the domestic violence.
Yeah.
It is that level of peak pop culture. We care too much about our relationship. We know
Yeah.
too much about your personal business. We're too invested. But also peak. We are playing this out in the public for you guys to consume it and to
Yeah.
like so apparently the story, I don't know if you've heard the story. Maybe you have. So apparently there was some concert that he went to
Mm-hmm.
and saw her there. I think they may have had an interaction or maybe not, but apparently she was like talking about him while she was on stage at this show, and he was pissed off about it and literally went to the studio afterwards and recorded this song. That's the story that Timberland and he both told
Oh
after this was after it came out,
no, I had never heard that story. I
which
just
is
knew,
crazy to think
yeah,
about.
yo, I just knew the elements because it was like, what's the guy's name? It's like Collins. He's an actor. Whoever that Britney allegedly had cheated with,
Mm.
I remember that whole scuffle, but I didn't hear that part of the story.
So first of all, something that I forgot to talk about before on Like I Love You. Apparently Federline is a dancer in the video,
Ooh.
which is insane. So for those of you who are listening, just so you can keep up with the drama, Kevin Federline would eventually become Britney's husband, so who apparently he was a dancer. If you want to go deep into it, he was married to Shar Jackson from Moesha at some
Yeah.
point too. But I guess before he and Britney started dating, he was a dancer in Justin Timberlake's "Like I Love You" video, which is wild, just
Bananas.
wild, wild,
Wow. I gotta go watch the video now because I'm like, wait a minute.
wild.
Yeah, they were royalty to us. So like these two people who are like at the top of their game, date, break up, and I'm a free Britney, justice for Britney girl. But at the time, we were all on Justice's side.
Yes.
We thought that Britney had done him dirty. We listened to the song and I felt like he had gotten his vengeance. Because this song is nasty work.
The song is intense. Like let's just go through all of it. The song is intense. Timbo did his thing, but also Scott Storch helped produce it. Found out recently that, I mean, hopefully everyone knows there's Marsha Ambrosius singing at the end, the
Yeah.
Cry Me part.
Yeah.
Ty Tribbett, gospel singer, has contributed to this making this record as well. So like just the dynamic like that's a lot of musical genius that went into composing this song.
Absolutely.
Where Justin just gets on here and just airs all his feelings out. But then let's talk about the video. Okay, cool. So specifically casted this girl who looks exactly like her.
Yeah.
To play this role of him doing his revenge whatever on video so that she can like, what are we doing, man? That like
Why did we let him do that?
Insane. It is so insane, man.
Yeah.
Insane. Insane.
But that's how obsessed we were with them. We were eating it up.
That shit was crazy. That shit was crazy. And so also I realized doing research for this. So something about the name Justin, right? Apparently, when Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez broke up, they both like exchanged acoustic performances of them performing this song to each other, like months apart. Like Justin did it first, and then Selena did it later.
Yo.
So the legacy of this song is whoo.
Mm.
But ultimately, though, the best thing about it is that it's a really good song.
It's so good. It's so well done.
It's
Like
so many. It takes you through so many emotions, and like,
easily some of Tim's strongest work. And Tim has a resume on him.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. It's a really good song. Just all the energy around it is not good, but the song itself is great, which is what happens sometimes. Sometimes
yeah.
the best music comes from dark places.
Yeah, wild stories. But the song, I honestly feel like I've listened to it on a breakup or two. So
Yeah, man.
lives on forever.
All right. Next song we're going into probably could be argued to be the biggest song from the album. Rock Your Body. He definitely in his Mike Jackson off the wall bag on this one for sure.
Yeah.
I love Rock Your Body. I think it's a dope song. It's a dope song that's like JT getting into his like letting you guys know I'm a single superstar. I don't need instinct dancing beside me. Like I'm out here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little dance groove. I just want to talk very briefly, like the sequencing of this album again, to go from Take It From Here to Cry Me a River, then to Rock Your Body. It's like those three songs in order do not make sense. They don't make sense. They have nothing to do with each other. But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Still works.
It's such a strong progression. Like, you don't care. I don't care that I was just yelling at somebody about our breakup and now I'm like on the dance floor with
Yep.
somebody else. It's fine.
Yeah.
Also,
It's crazy.
God, I guess you got to bring up the other scandal. Justice lived a life. Justice lived a life. I'm gonna keep this as brief as possible. I don't want to get into the politics of it. I love Janet. Just Justin was one of the biggest stars out. He gets the Super Bowl show. He has Janet Jackson of all people performing with him.
Who was rumored to be dating. They were rumored to be dating at some
Yeah.
point as well.
Yeah. What's interesting about this whole thing to me is that like Janet is, I think it gets downplayed sometimes. She takes some risks. So she puts herself out there, and I was surprised at this time, at my age, I was just like, I think I was kind of surprised at the reaction.
Right.
I think to me, I was like, I mean, it's giving Janet. I get it.
Right.
People were pissed. Pissed. And a lot of people feel like you can't take Janet Jackson down in my eyes, but a lot of people feel like number one, it hurt her career. Number two, Justin didn't support her strongly enough. I don't have any feelings about that latter part. But yeah, it's still a story. We still talk about it.
Yeah. And so when we did the pop episode earlier or last year, and we were talking about our negative vibes for Justin, it was mostly because of the fact that after that scandal in 2003, 4 Super Bowl, he got another chance to do it, like in 2018.
Yeah.
So like that made the wound fresh again. Whereas like, bro, like you get to do it again, but we don't like without even having any, major consequences or acknowledging that. So I think that's what our beef was with him. I mean, it didn't help that Man in the Woods was, again, I don't want to get into Man in the Woods that much because like I think we have better reaction to it than we did initially. But at the same time, like we just weren't vibing with him. And so I think, there's a quote that he gave kind of in response to negative Janet talk, but also like when everyone became supportive of Britney, where he's like, I fell short in these moments and in many others and benefited from a system that condones misogyny and racism.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I was gonna say about that. Like, I think for most of us, it felt like, and Justin has at different intervals felt like he was pushing away from blackness, and this is the same blackness that gave you success, and
Exactly.
that's our problem with it. So, like, I always love the music, but it's hard to feel that from somebody whose music you appreciate so much. It's
For
like
sure.
it's good enough for you to get a #1 single for, but not for you to stand up behind. I appreciate that he recognizes it in the
Right.
aftermath.
Before we leave this song, let's leave this song on a positive note because we do love Rock Your Body. It's a great song. Back to the documentary, there's the moment that P and JT are in the studio. You get to see them, the whole process of them crafting the bridge on Rock Your Body in their bag. Like it is the energy in that is just watching them build that from scratch and just hearing the beat just go back and forth, like repeat, but them coming up with the words and the melody. And because it's the call and response part, like where P is, singing Justin's part, but then Justin's helping to come up with the part. I think that will end up being sung by Vanessa Marquez. Shout out to Vanessa
Yeah,
Marquez.
I was gonna
Like,
say we gotta talk about
gotta
her.
shout out Vanessa Marquez, like who actually follows me on Instagram now, which is great. So Vanessa, if you're listening, we think you're dope.
We
Appreciate
love
your
you.
support. But she actually posted a video on her Instagram maybe last month that I think it was a video recording that her dad had of Justin on 106 in Park, maybe, where they were asking him about who was collaborating on the album, but he mentioned everyone, but also mentioned her. He's like, also, like, you got to check out this unsigned girl who helped out with the album, Vanessa Marquez. Like, she's dope, blah, 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 blah. So
Yeah,
that was dope. See, like, look at him. He actually is a good guy sometimes. Like,
yeah,
that's,
yeah. We all fall short. We all
yeah,
fall short. But I love Vanessa Marquez. I will stand on this soapbox forever. She just doesn't get enough credit.
yeah,
I I wanted more for her, but she's definitely Neptune's princess. So
for
I love
sure.
hearing her on this song.
For sure, for sure. Okay, next song is Nothin Else. So what I also realized from watching the documentary is Nothin Else has a reference or original recording from Latrell, who we've talked about on this podcast a couple times, who she had that single Party and another song that was dope called Infatuated. It was part of a whole album that the Neptunes, I think, either completely or mostly produced that never got released. But shout out to Steve Hammond, my boy. He actually brings her up a lot. But and the music is just, it's very, the music from that album that didn't get released is very like, I think of it almost in the same way that we think about exclusive audio footage with the Clipse.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of that album was a rough draft for Laura Willing. Like I think Latrell's album in a lot of ways is kind of some pieces of maybe a rough draft of this album, but also maybe a rough draft of some Khalees stuff,
Yeah.
or maybe a rough draft of like who's some other R&B stuff they did, or like the Usher stuff. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a lot of commentary about Nothing Else I really enjoy. Also puts me in the mind of Take It From Here, puts me in the mind of Let's Take a Ride. They all have
mm-hmm.
the same like easy love track feel.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, the next song, I'm just gonna go out and say this is my favorite song on the album.
Really?
Last Night.
Okay.
The energy, it's something about the energy and the bop of the drums.
Yeah.
Um, that is really, really dope. Really dope. Um, and that was really the only reason I wanted to watch the documentary was to get to that part. And so that was after I got to that part, I think it's on part 6. Like I really kind of started to tune out. I think I made it to 7 out of the 14. Or maybe there's more than 14. I have no idea.
Oh no.
But anyway, Last Night is dope. Like I think I really enjoyed that song for like just the energy of it is really good.
Yeah. It's something to be said for angry Justin. Some people do well with a certain emotion, and he does well with anger. But it's a good song. It's a groove. Yeah. I'm gonna go right into Still on My Brain.
Okay, go ahead.
What a downer. I mean, it's a good song, but what a downer. It's so sad.
So, still on my brain, I think is very much in context. It's like what people would expect from a guy who used to be in NSYNC.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like it's just really the guys who produced it, the underdogs. Like I don't really know what they did outside of this. I haven't like looked up their history. But so back to the documentary, right? So they're making this, and they're making Still in My Brain in the studio. First thing, just to add context to the timing of it, they're watching a Lakers Kings game, RIP Kobe, which is a very important rivalry and series in the NBA in that time of like 2002, 2003, where like part of Kobe's legacy. There's also like this scandal with the refs cheating during that playoff series. Like watching that and seeing that like was pretty dope and pretty cool to add like the context of like, yo, this is really 2002. Like this is crazy.
Yeah.
But Justin tells his producers, the underdogs, he wants "She's Out of My Life" vibes from Mike Jackson, and I think that's what you get. Like
Yeah.
it's another Jackson reference to the comparison, but you know I think it's. I will say this, Vogue. When I listened to it, when I listened to this album all the way through yesterday, one, the Timbo songs, I knew them and I liked them. But the non-Neptunes Timbo songs, because obviously I listen to Neptune songs all the time, but like the non-Neptunes and Timbo songs, like were almost at first they were forgettable, but then I realized I caught myself singing Still in My Brain. So like I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
listening to that. When we get to the last song, Never Again, always a skip. I didn't even know that song at all. Like I had no idea. I did not remember that song at all.
It's always a I can I just talk about it now?
No, we got okay, go ahead.
It's always a skip, but I like so in real life, I was like, I don't want to hear this song, and why don't I want to hear it? I was like, who did this song?
It's a Brian McKnight
And
song.
I went on Wikipedia and I see McKnight. I said, Brian,
Yes, it's a Brian McKnight song.
the Brian McKnight. I had no idea. So, but we can get back on track.
So yeah, Still in My Brain is like you said, it's a downer in the middle of a very high energy, upbeat album for the most part.
Yeah.
But it's just, but yeah. Okay. So
Take me now.
Take Me Now, and She Said. We already talked about Janet, which I think is we don't need to go back there, but the fact that she's featured on this is like pretty crazy.
Yeah.
In the documentary, there's a studio time where he's in the studio with Timberland now. Bubba Sparks is there, who's featured on another song, which is Right for Me, which is the next song. And then Scott Storch is there, who we talked about already, who did a little bit of help on Crimea River. But they also showed them making a song called Hootenanny, which is on Bubba Sparks' album, where Justin is like doing the hook and they kind of fleshed it out. It's like it's so I'm really glad and dope that we can go to this whole album because we talk about the Timberland songs because we normally wouldn't do that. So like that was
Yeah.
really dope. Like Bubba, I thought Bubba Sparks had a shot, man. Like he had a couple good
Yeah.
songs. Timbo making his beats, like he came out and I think he was strong, and it was a perfect timing for the two of them to be doing this at the same time that they could collaborate and help. I don't really want to say unify the. I don't just. I think you understand what I'm saying. Like those guys being who they are in this space,
Yeah.
trying to carve out their own lane and being able to do it together, I think made a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Both of them being Southern country ass people too. I think
That's
I'm more so about them being Southern country guys than
yeah.
Southern country
Yes.
white guys, but that's part of what I'm saying.
I feel like that was clear to me because, like, I had the same thought, and I mean, I'll admit I was disappointed that Bubba didn't take off more than he did. I enjoyed kind of what he brought, and I feel like that can be an argument for people who are not black in the space that like they're just like everybody else. But I feel like he had his own unique thing
Right.
that he
Right.
did, and whether that came from working with Timbaland or if that was his own thing that Timbaland just understood.
Right.
I liked the work that he did when he was on the scene.
So here's another perfect reason why I think they need to remake or remaster or whatever this documentary.
Yeah.
So during this part, everyone who's paying attention, this is part 5 if you want to go watch it on YouTube. They're in the studio, and I like you can in the foreground. I think Justin is doing something. The music is playing, but in the background, you see Timbaland having a conversation with this woman, and you can only hear bits and pieces of their conversation. But like I hear Timbo talk about, he's saying, "Yeah, we got to have the energy, like because New York is where it's at." You know, like when Jay-Z and them dropped "Give It to Me," it was all over and crazy, crazy, crazy. And so then the lady responds. He says, "Oh yeah," and tells a story basically about how, from what I get from her story, is that she was involved with the management of a club in LA. There's the line in Jay-Z, "Give It to Me," "Peanuts in LA, bubbling and doubling." So apparently, him putting that club in that lyric made the club blow up. Like there was always too many people there. So the gist of the story that I get from her is basically Jay-Z put them in a song, and then they had all these crazy people coming to see them, and they had to close because the cops shut them down because there was too many people there. I could be wrong because again, you can't really hear word for word what she's saying, but that's the gist of the energy that I did, which was crazy to talk about. Obviously, this is a Neptunes podcast. Obviously, this album is very much a collaboration, not directly between P and Justin and Chad, P and Chad and Justin, and Timbo and Justin. So like to hear Timbo and his relationship with P, and obviously his relationship with Jay-Z and like as well. He's talking about this song that has nothing to do with this Justin Timberlake shit. But that being in the documentary, I thought was a really cool moment to just show how all this shit's connected, man. Like, and just kind of talk about the time period of how everyone's paying attention to what everyone else is doing. So I have no idea who this woman was.
Yeah.
But I thought that story was dope because that's a really cool perspective of like, yo, Jay-Z is always, I think he's become known to do that, where he can say stuff in a song and it's like, oh shit, like what is that he's talking about? Oh, like, are we drinking Ace of Spade now? Okay. Oh yeah, we, doing this, or we going to this place? Like, I think there's so many things where you hear it in Jay-Z song and you got to go look it up and see like, oh yeah, damn, that's crazy. I need to go look into that.
Yeah, he's the it guy.
Forever, man. Forever.
I was just gonna say, I was like, still, like, he references it. You at least check. You at least Google it.
Okay. So we talked about Right For Me. I thought that was a good song. Bubba Sparks did his thing. I think Let's Take a Ride. Let's Take a Ride is good too. I think Let's Take a Ride and I think Let's Take a Ride, Nothin Else, and Take It From Here all have like similar energy, just kind of like very smooth Neptune songs.
Yeah, they're like sister songs. I would say though, for a very long time, this was my favorite track off the album. It just, for me, it evokes a lot of things in my mind visually. Like I can envision what he's talking about, where they're going, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Just really puts you in the moment. It's really not a whole lot more to say than, they're just really well done songs.
For sure. It's weird too, just because it's about taking a ride. I also always in my brain when I hear that song think about Nelly Take a Ride. Come take a ride with me. And it's just like you're swapping Nelly out for JT, and it's a little bit smoother situation. I don't know. That's just, I mean, they came out around the same time.
Yes, this is all this stuff exists in the same cipher for us.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Last song we talked about already, Never Again, which is a perfect title because we never listened to it again. No disrespect. Like I literally, and like this, I don't have any problems with Brian. I actually liked some Brian Knight stuff like back in the day, early. Like what what was that song? What was that song called? Maxine was five
Anytime.
foot nine. Keep it on the down low. You remember
Oh
that?
no.
Dirty Mac. That's one of the classic Dirty Mac songs.
No, I don't remember that. But
Oh
I do like,
man.
I mean, I love a good Brian McKnight ballad. And the thing is, I'll say this, it makes sense to have Brian McKnight come do a song like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's his strong point. I
Right.
just don't think after the incredible album we experienced, there was a lot of highs, there were like musical, like gentler points. I just don't know that I wanted to end off with a ballad.
Right.
I would have actually paired this a little closer to Still on My Brain, maybe transition directly into that. But I mean, like, maybe it would have lost my attention. Maybe that's why they threw it at the end. I don't know.
For sure.
It's not a bad song. I just don't think it captured me. I am more interested now knowing that it's a Brian McKnight song.
Yeah. I just didn't even let it finish the other day. I was just
I
like, man,
didn't
I'm
either.
just because I wasn't in that space. And it's just like
I started listening to Doechii. Like I
like
just
you
I was
said,
like,
like you said, the highs in the album are so high.
yeah.
Like Rocky, like the energy of all the songs, except for, still, like I said, even Still in My Brain, like I still
Yeah, I know.
I remembered some of the words, but
Yeah, this song also, interestingly enough, it reminds me of a song I like better. Um,
mm,
it reminds me of this song on the Cisco album,
wow.
um, Incomplete.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just reminds me of a different song. So I go listen to that
Yeah.
song instead of this. But not a bad song, not a bad way to end the album. But we could have called it at Let's Take a
Yeah.
Ride.
All right. So your favorite three songs on the album?
Favorite three songs. Cry Me a River. I would say Like I Love You and yeah, Let's Take a Ride.
I'm gonna say Last Night, Rock Your Body, Like I Love You.
Okay. Like I Love You is the common point.
Yeah.
Undeniable single.
I mean, the other part about it too, and I had this conversation in another episode that hasn't come out yet, that will come out after this, so I'm not going to say anything about it. But just about how I have to be intentional or just transparent when people ask me questions like that, because I'm always going to skew towards the Neptunes, Pharrell produced songs because I'm listening to them all the time for the sake of being prepared to talk about them on this episode, on this podcast.
Yeah.
So like literally, like if you ask me, there's a bunch of songs, there's a couple songs in here produced by Timberlake. I love those songs, but if I'm going to say which ones have I heard the most, which will then skew my vision of them being my favorites, the Neptunes are the ones because like that's just what I like.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, I think that's really honest. And that's, I mean, like I said, that's the same conversation I had with myself. I was like, I am a Neptunes fan. I like that style of music. It has formed my interest in music in a lot of different ways. And so when we get into these kind of discussions, I can't deny that that's where my interest lies. It's no disrespect to anybody else.
Right.
I just love what they do and how they do it.
So I think we agree, out of the two super producers, definitely prefer P over
Yeah.
Timbo on this album.
Yeah. Like I said though, or like we both said, Cry Me a River.
Cry Me a River is a masterpiece, though. It is a masterpiece. Like
Insane.
it's a masterpiece. Damn, I wonder if that's one of the parts. I got like if I'm gonna look this up afterwards. Like if there's a way for me to specifically go to the part that has them making that on it, I want to see that.
Yeah.
Like I think that would be amazing to watch. Apparently, if the story that I just talked about is true about him being mad after a concert and going to the studio to record it, like that's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Hey, this is what. So I'm gonna back you in that. I absolutely think that they should, because I'm gonna have to go and watch all 20 hours of this thing.
Because
But
I don't know if it has like I don't know if it has like descriptions, right? Like
yeah,
it just says part, just making of Justified part 1, 2, 3.
right. But I definitely think that it would be something that people are interested in to go back, take this footage, remaster it, cut it down to the stuff that's like really critical to the story. Like, I think that that would be a really strong piece. And honestly, I think we should start leveraging our Twitter fans to be like, hey, tweet about this so somebody will do it.
My goodness.
If I had the video editing skills, I'd do it myself.
There's no better way to celebrate 20th anniversary of this album than to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless they don't want to because they don't like, but they can just cut the parts out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all come from the world of reality TV.
Right.
The edit is everything.
Just show the parts that you want to show.
Yeah. I mean, we all are very different from who we were 20 years ago. And I think that
Justin Timberlake included.
yeah, thank God.
Hopefully my man has learned to beat his feet by now.
You know what? I just want to pretend that didn't happen. I appreciated him trying. I'm gonna stick with that. I stand 10 toes down in that statement. I appreciated his efforts.
It was good to see him out there, man. That's all I'm gonna say. It was good to see him out there. It was good to hear the music live. And at some point in 2023, we will get our I actually have this on the list because I think, if I am correct, that there's an anniversary, a decent, either a multiple of 5 anniversary of Man in the Woods, maybe next year.
Ooh.
Maybe it's damn.
We're gonna finally do our
Hold on,
math.
I'm looking it up. I feel like it is 5-year anniversary of Man in the Woods is February 2023. So get ready.
I'm ready. I'm gonna sit with that album.
You gotta sit with it. It's got okay. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, another time. This has been fun.
All right, folks. Appreciate y'all for listening to another episode of Neptune Sunday. Your homework is to spam Justin Timberlake's Twitter and tell them to remaster the documentary. Go run Justify on the 20th anniversary of it. Say thank you to Pharrell and Timbo and Chad. And also say thank you to Brittany and Janet Jackson.
They deserve it.
All right, guys. Peace and love. We'll catch you next Neptune Sunday.
Bye.